After nearly 50 years in sunny Southern California, Yamaha just made a decision that sent shockwaves through the motorcycle industry. They are leaving. The entire United States headquarters of Yamaha Motor Corporation is packing up its offices in Cypress, California. They are relocating all the way across the country to Kennesaw, Georgia, in the Atlanta metro area. When a global powersports giant that has been planted in the same state since 1979 decides to uproot everything, you have to ask one very basic question: what changed? Now, we are not talking about some small niche brand here. Yamaha is a global powerhouse. The parent company pulls in roughly $16.8 billion a year. In the US alone, Yamaha employs thousands of people across manufacturing, marine, and corporate operations, and generates well over $1 billion in annual revenue. They make everything from the R1 and MT-07 to wave runners, outboard motors, all-terrain vehicles, side-by-sides, golf cars, and even unmanned helicopters. Yamaha holds a commanding 42% share of global outboard motor production, according to Power Systems research. When a company with that kind of footprint decides to abandon a 47-year headquarters, it is worth paying very close attention to the reasons. And when you actually dig into the numbers, the tax filings, and what has been happening behind the scenes in Georgia for the past 2 decades, this move did not come out of nowhere. It was practically inevitable. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why. So let's start with what Yamaha actually said, because when a story like this hits the internet, the rumor mill goes wild. On February 26, 2026, Yamaha Motor Company Limited, the parent company based in Iwata, Japan, issued an official press release announcing the relocation of its U.S. subsidiary. Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia followed up with a stateside announcement on March 10, 2026, and the Orange County Register broke the California side of the story the day before that. Now, Yamaha did not sugarcoat the reasoning. The press release specifically mentioned cost increases resulting from U.S. tariffs and changes in the market environment. It described the move as part of structural reforms aimed at improving profitability. Company spokesperson Bob Starr put it even more plainly when he told the Orange County Business Journal that the market for almost all powersports products has changed substantially, and that combining everything in Georgia in terms of efficiency just makes a lot of sense. So this was not a vibes-based decision. This was the spreadsheet talking. The timeline is already in motion. Functions start moving in late 2026. And the full relocation wraps up by late 2028. Yamaha worked out a sale and leaseback arrangement on the California property through the end of 2028 so they can keep the lights on during the transition. Roughly 200 to 250 employees currently work at the Cypress campus in departments like accounting, corporate planning, and financial services. At its peak, that office held about 450 people. Here is an interesting detail that came out of the governor's office. The decision traces back to October 2025, when Governor Kemp met with Yamaha executives at the SEUS Japan annual gathering in Tokyo. But spokesperson Carter Chapman confirmed that Georgia did not provide any grants or quick start workforce training funds to lure Yamaha in. The company came on its own. That should tell you something about how attractive the operating environment already was. Now let's talk about what Yamaha is walking away from, because this isn't some dinky office park lease they're letting expire. The Yamaha campus at 6555 Catella Avenue in Cypress, California sits on 25 acres of prime Orange County real estate. There are 3 buildings, nearly 279,000 square feet. The street next to it is literally named Yamaha Way. They were one of the first companies in the Cypress Business Park back in 1979, which makes them a 47-year tenant. That property is now being marketed for sale by commercial real estate firm Avison Young under the name Catella 25. They're calling it one of the largest industrial redevelopment opportunities currently available in Southern California. And based on CoStar data showing that industrial land in Cypress trades at roughly $4 million per acre, that 25-acre campus could be worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million. No buyer has been announced yet, but you can bet that listing is getting attention. And Yamaha isn't the first Japanese company to bail on Cypress either. Mitsubishi Motors North America left its 31-acre headquarters there in 2019 after 31 years and moved to Franklin, Tennessee. Amazon later snapped up Mitsubishi's old campus for a distribution facility. So there's a pattern forming here, and the city of Cypress knows it. Planning Director Alicia Velasco acknowledged Yamaha's departure with a statement about their importance to the business community for over 40 years. But the question everyone keeps asking is, why? Why leave a state with perfect riding weather, the Pacific Coast Highway, and one of the largest economies on the planet? And the answer comes down to math. California's corporate income tax rate sits at 8.84%. Georgia's is 5.19% and dropping, with a target of 4.99% already written into law. California hits businesses with an $800 minimum annual franchise tax just for existing in the state, regardless of whether they made any money. Georgia caps that at $5,000. California's top personal income tax rate is 13.3%, the highest in the nation. Georgia charges a flat 5.19%. California even taxes capital gains as ordinary income at that same 13.3% rate. Georgia charges 5.19% again. And it's not just taxes. The commercial real estate math is brutal. Office space in the Kennesaw area averages about $26 per square foot, compared to $31 to $35 per square foot in Orange County. For buying property outright, Georgia's statewide average of about $125 per square foot is roughly half of California's $249 per square foot. The overall cost of living in Atlanta runs 24 to 38% below the Los Angeles and Orange County area, depending on which calculator you use. That means employees who relocate get an instant raise in purchasing power without Yamaha spending an extra dollar on payroll. The Tax Foundation's 2026 State Tax Competitiveness Index ranked California 48th out of 50 states. Georgia ranked 18th and climbing, one of the 5 most improved states in the country since 2020. For a company operating a headquarters on 25 acres with hundreds of employees, those differences don't just add up. They compound year after year, and Yamaha is far from alone in reaching this conclusion. This is where the story gets bigger than motorcycles. Between 2020 and August 2025, at least 196 companies relocated or shifted headquarters out of California, according to tracking by Build Remote. A Hoover Institution study documented hundreds of headquarters relocations between 2018 and 2021, and the Public Policy Institute of California identified hundreds more business departures over the past decade, with the pace picking up sharply after 2017. The names on that list are wild. Tesla moved from Palo Alto to Austin, Texas. Oracle left Redwood City for Austin. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise relocated from San Jose to Spring, Texas. Charles Schwab went to Westlake, Texas. And maybe the most symbolic departure of all, Chevron, a company that had been in California since 1879, announced in 2024 that it was moving its headquarters to Houston, projecting around $201 million in annual operational savings. Even In-N-Out Burger announced plans to close its 30-year Irvine office and open a new Eastern Territory headquarters in Franklin, Tennessee, with a $125 million investment and 275 corporate jobs. Owner Lindsay Snyder later clarified the California headquarters would remain in Baldwin Park, but acknowledged that doing business and raising a family in California was not easy. About 54% of departing companies chose Texas as their destination. But Georgia has been quietly stacking wins of its own. The moving truck data backs all of this up. U-Haul ranked California dead last, 50th out of 50 states, in its annual growth index for the 6th consecutive year. That index measures one-way truck rental patterns across 2.5 million annual transactions. Think about that for a second. 6 straight years at the bottom. United Van Lines reported California at 58% outbound in 2025. North American Van Lines named California the top outbound state for the 2nd year in a row. The top destinations are Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and the Carolinas. The population numbers tell the same story. California lost a net 216,000 domestic residents in the year ending July 2025. And since April 2020, the state has seen over 1.46 million net domestic departures. In 2023 alone, over 77,000 Californians moved to Texas, 53,000 to Nevada, and 52,000 to Arizona. International immigration has partially offset those losses, but the people and companies leaving tend to be higher income and higher tax paying. Meanwhile, Chief Executive Magazine has ranked California dead last for business climate for over 10 consecutive years, while Georgia ranked 5th in 2025. Now, an important caveat: California still has the 5th largest economy in the world if you count it as its own country. Not every company is leaving, and many that do leave still keep significant operations there. Tesla, for example, still runs a massive factory in Fremont, but the trend is clear, and it is accelerating. So why did Yamaha pick Georgia specifically? Because they were already there. And this is the part of the story that a lot of people miss. Long before this headquarters announcement, Yamaha had quietly built a massive Georgia operation with over 2,300 employees across multiple facilities. The anchor is Yamaha Motor Manufacturing Corporation of America in Newnan, Georgia. Founded in 1986 with production starting in 1988, that factory sits on 280 acres with 1.3 million square feet across 6 buildings and roughly 2,000 employees. It was Yamaha Motor Company's first manufacturing operation in a highly developed country. The vast majority of Yamaha's wave runners, golf cars, and side-by-sides for the North American market come off those Newnan production lines, along with most of the world's Yamaha ATVs. Over 4 million vehicles have been assembled there. The company has invested more than $380 million in its U.S. manufacturing operations. And in 2022, they broke ground on a 200,000 square foot automated smart warehouse in Newnan, the first of its kind for Yamaha anywhere in the world. Then there is the Marine Division, which moved to Kennesaw back in 1999 and operates out of a 459,000 square foot facility. The Marine Innovation Center opened in Kennesaw in April 2023 with Governor Kemp at the ribbon cutting. That 75,000 square foot center houses connected boat technology, marine development, and teams working on products like their DockPoint auto docking system. And the motorsports group, covering motorcycles, ATVs, and side-by-sides, had already fully relocated to Marietta, Georgia by 2019. So what was actually left in California? Basically just corporate planning, accounting, and financial services. The operational heart of Yamaha USA has been beating in Georgia for years. This headquarters move is less of a leap and more of a final consolidation. And the infrastructure that Georgia offers makes the logistics case even stronger. Atlanta hosts 16 Fortune 500 headquarters, including Home Depot, UPS, Delta Airlines, Coca-Cola, and Southern Company. Combined, those companies generate over $527 billion in annual revenue and employ 1.38 million people. That kind of corporate density creates an ecosystem of suppliers, consultants, law firms, and talent that any new headquarters immediately plugs into. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport processed 108.1 million passengers in 2024, making it the busiest airport on Earth by passenger volume. It has held that title almost continuously since 1998 and remains the only airport in history to serve 100 million passengers in a year. More than 1,000 flights depart daily to over 225 destinations. For a company like Yamaha, whose executives need to fly to dealers, partners, and the parent company in Japan, that connectivity is a serious advantage. Atlanta's interstate network puts the city within a 2-hour flight or a 2-day truck drive of 80% of the U.S. population. Interstate 75 runs straight through both Atlanta and Kennesaw, connecting Michigan to Florida. Interstate 85 links Virginia to Alabama through the Metro Core. And the Port of Savannah handled 5.7 million container units in 2025, making it the 3rd busiest container port in the country and the largest single-terminal container facility in North America. The Port of Brunswick, also in Georgia, ranks as the #1 roll-on roll-off port in the country for automotive and heavy machinery, which is directly relevant to shipping powersports vehicles. Area Development Magazine has named Georgia the #1 state for doing business for 12 consecutive years from 2014 through 2025. That is not a fluke. That is a sustained effort by the state to build exactly the kind of operating environment that companies like Yamaha are looking for. If you are finding this breakdown helpful, hit subscribe. We cover motorcycle industry news every week and actually dig into the numbers behind the headlines. Now, for writers watching this, there is one more layer to this story that goes beyond tax rates and corporate strategy, and it might be the most interesting part. The Southeast has quietly become the motorcycle capital of America. And this is not hyperbole. The tail of the dragon at Deals Gap on the North Carolina and Tennessee border is widely considered the #1 motorcycle road in the country. 318 curves are packed into just 11 miles of US Route 129, with no intersecting streets, no driveways, and no commercial development. It borders Great Smoky Mountains National Park and Cherokee National Forest, and it draws an estimated 240,000 to 250,000 motorcyclists every single year. On a typical spring weekend, 800 to 1,200 riders will hit those curves. On holidays, that number can exceed 1,500. Named corners like Copperhead Corner, Gravity Cavity, and Beginner's End have become legendary. And then there is the Tree of Shame, decorated with parts from crashed motorcycles. Dark humor, but any rider who has been there knows exactly what I'm talking about. The Blue Ridge Parkway stretches 469 miles across Virginia and North Carolina and is the single most visited site in the entire national park system. It pulled 16.7 million visitors in 2023. That is more than the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, and Yosemite combined. There are no commercial vehicles, no stop signs, and no traffic lights for the entire length. The road climbs from 650 feet to over 6,000 feet at Richland Balsam, and motorcycle riders typically take 2 to 3 days to ride the whole thing. Then you have the Cherokee Skyway, a 43-mile national scenic byway connecting North Carolina and Tennessee that reaches over 5,400 feet with 15 overlooks. It took 34 years and $100 million to build. The Discovery Channel ranked it among the top 10 motorcycle rides in North America. Riders routinely combine the Dragon, the Cherokee, and the Parkway into multi-day loop rides. There is a whole ecosystem of motorcycle-specific lodges, restaurants, and gear shops that has grown up around these routes. And here is where it connects directly to Yamaha's business. The broader US powersports market is worth somewhere between $12 and $16 billion, depending on what products you include, and it is projected to grow to $17 to $27 billion by the mid-2030s. The side-by-side segment alone is growing at an estimated 18.5% compound annual rate. The off-road category makes up 68% of the total market. And the Southeast, with its temperate climate and massive outdoor recreation economy, is the beating heart of that demand. Georgia's outdoor recreation economy generated $20.7 billion in GDP in 2024, ranking 7th nationally. Florida, right next door, contributed $65.3 billion, ranking 2nd. Boating and fishing is the #1 conventional outdoor recreation activity in the entire country, at $38.4 billion in value added, which is directly relevant to Yamaha's marine product lines. And unlike California or the Northeast, the Southeast supports 8 to 10 months of riding and recreation weather annually. No snow closures for half the year, no wind chill keeping your bike in the garage until April. From Yamaha's perspective, relocating their leadership to Georgia puts their decision makers within driving distance of their actual customers and the roads those customers ride every weekend. That is not something you get from a corporate campus in Orange County. So, what does all of this mean for you, the rider? Realistically, your local Yamaha dealership is going to keep selling bikes. Your service department is still going to order parts. The next R1, MT-07, and Tenere are still going to show up in showrooms. This is not the kind of move that changes what happens at the retail level tomorrow morning. But behind the scenes, the entire command structure of Yamaha's American operations will soon be operating from Kennesaw, Georgia. When leadership lives close to manufacturing, close to logistics hubs, and close to the riding culture they serve, that proximity tends to shape decisions in ways that benefit the end customer. Faster product development cycles, tighter feedback loops between sales and engineering, and a corporate culture that actually rides the bikes they make. Whether this turns out to be a brilliant strategic move or just another corporate relocation story, we will find out over the next few years. But the math is hard to argue with, and the Southeast is clearly winning the fight for where American powersports companies want to call home. What I think is most interesting is that this is not really a story about one company leaving one state. It is a story about the economic center of gravity in America shifting. For decades, if you wanted to be in the motorcycle and powersports business, you set up shop in California. That was where the culture was, where the talent was, where the weather was. The Southeast has quietly built all of those things, plus lower costs, better logistics, and year-round riding. And companies are starting to notice. Yamaha noticed, and after 47 years, they made their choice. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Yamaha made the right call? Are we going to see more power sports companies follow them east? Drop your take in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.